Brief, only on Contra Radio Network.
All right. Welcome to another stunning episode. And it is stunning, trust me, folks. Oh, you know what? This is what I need to do, because I forgot. No, I don't want that one. No. Give me the other sound effects. Yeah, that one. Welcome to the Jeffers Brief. I'm John Jeffers, your host, founder and executive producer here at Contra Radio Network and on KYAH 540 AM in Delta, Utah. Welcome. All right, we got a lot going on here. One of the things we're doing here, we just revamped the ContraRadioNetwork.com website. Thank you to the prepper guy, Mark Boyle, for putting it together. We're going to start incorporating videos along with the audio. So for those of you that like watching the videos online, you can see what it looks like, what we do during the show, as well as for those of you that are driving and you don't want to be watching any videos while you're driving, I do not recommend it. You can listen to us on the podcast. All right. Got a lot to talk about, a lot to do. And I only got 59 minutes and 50 seconds to do it in. That's it. No, it's true. It's true. What I'm telling you is true. All right. A lot of different things. Nothing really major. Every week it's the same crap coming out of the left-wing mainstream media. Trump's a racist, yada, yada, yada. Finally, I believe it's Toomey. He's a news analyst, get this, at CNN. And a couple weeks ago, I posted, not only posted his video that he made, but I also put it into the radio show. And what it talks about is called the Charlottesville lie. And basically, you have someone at CNN who has a backbone of journalistic integrity calling out the mainstream media for their journalistic malfeasance. Now, apparently the New York Times this week has decided that they, and they alone, after a 2-year failure of telling their readers that for sure, that Trump colluded with the Russians, now they're going to do for the next 2 years, so get ready for the next 2 years, New York Times is going to be screaming about Trump's a racist, Trump's a bigot. They're going to continue the journalistic malfeasance as opposing to correct the record. But that's okay. Now, here's something for you people who have central air conditioning. Big government has new cooling standards for your air conditioner. Now, they want the thermostat to be set at 82 degrees when sleeping. Fresh from the same Department of Energy and EPA that gave us toilets that don't flush, light bulbs that don't work, dishwashers that don't wash, plant-based fuel that burns like carrots, and paper straws that dissolve in liquid, we now get this. Energy Star, the federal program from the Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency, said the coolest, you psychopaths, said the coolest you should keep your home is 78 degrees. When you're at work or away, the program recommends setting it at 85 degrees. So when you're sleeping, Energy Star said to set the thermostat at 82 degrees. Setting the thermostat at 82 degrees at night is well-recognized grounds for divorce. I swear these administrative state progressives are going to have us force-fed sustainable algae cakes if this keeps up. The same journalist-type person published these new cooling standards on Twitter, and the responses are quite funny, actually. For example, I've seen we've decided to give up on sleeping or going home for that matter, or having pets that aren't native to the rainforest. Here's another one. I've already embraced a dying earth. so I keep my central air conditioner between 67 and 72 at all times. Another one, I'd be laying there making like... I'd be laying there making a giant sweat angel in my bed. Oh, how true that is. Here's another one. New report shows that these recommended types for smelling like an onion. And I have no idea how my ancestors survived deserts. If the thermostat in my house showed a number that started with an 8, I would call the police. Yes, it is criminal. But seriously, given the track record for current energy-efficient standards and how they end up being actually applied to life, the toilets, dishwashers, light bulbs, etc., it's darn frightening to think that the feds believe 78 degrees when home, 85 when away, and 82 when sleeping is a reasonable cooling standard. Insta-misery, a.k.a. living in hell. Watch out, California. Pretty soon, you might not have any options when the proletariat mandates the installation of compliance regulators inside the AC system. So there you have it. 82 degrees. Are you people psychotic? Oh, I can't stand it. It's so stupid I can't stand it. Now last week, hold on. By the way, for those of you who are watching on video, my drink for the day is Minute Maid lemonade for just 15 calories. And a lot less sugar. A lot less. Getting back to it, last week, I told you about that the economy is fine. There is no recession on the horizon. There isn't. You have to have 2 straight quarters of negative GDP. Haven't even had one yet since Trump's been in office. Not one. But the mainstream media would have you believe that the sky is falling and the wicked witch of the West is flying. It ain't true. And remember I told you that the reason there's a big break between the reality of Wall Street and the reality of Main Street? It's because Wall Street is dealing with multinational companies. That does not mean that other countries around the world are going into recession. Oh, well, too bad. Keep up or fall behind. Make the trade deal or fall behind. Not my problem, not our problem. Their problem. Now, how many of you know Lou Dobbs? Lou Dobbs, Fox Business Network, an economist. I believe he was on CNN before he left for Fox News. And I can't say I blame the man. However, between him and Maria Bartiromo, see, I watch Fox Business News. I like that. But one of the things they talked about is they said 34% of the economists in the United States say there will be a recession by, in 2020. 34%. I'm not making this up. Commercial comes on, I switch up to Fox News, and they have Harrison Faulkner. I dig Harrison Faulkner, I'll tell you. However, somebody gave her some really bad information. And I get it. Look, when you're reading the teleprompter on TV, you don't have it. You're reading it as it goes. You don't have really time to discern what it is you're reading, whether it's real or not. She blurts out, a majority of economists in the United States say there's going to be a recession in 2020. And I think to myself, wait a minute, did somebody fail to walk over to the next studio to see Fox, to check Fox Business Network, what they had? No. 34% is not a majority by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, it's only 1% over 1/3. That's it. That's it. Now, I just about blew out of the chair yesterday. Yesterday being the 20th. The Multinational Business Roundtable now claims social responsibility more important than profit. You know what? They have a fiduciary responsibility to their investors. and it's by law. A fiduciary responsibility to their investors. That is, they say, you give us money, and we will attempt to make money out of it. In other words, we're trying to make a profit for you. After all, when you're a business, isn't that the main goal? Number one, make a profit. Return your investors' money. I would think so. But apparently, I'm wrong. Now, the conservative treehouse, which is where Sundance hangs out, suspected this was going to happen. And it was predictable if you had followed the fracture between Main Street, which is Trump, and Wall Street multinationals. Remember, there are trillions of dollars at stake. And so this is part of the battle. So here's the cut through the BS motive behind the Multinational Association of Business Roundtable CEOs. These are all pure Wall Street. Suddenly saying, social responsibility should be put above the profit. Yeah, you know what? I would say if I'm an investor, I can't even do it because I'll be bad. I can't say that. Anyways, according to Reuters, the top CEOs say companies should put social responsibility above profit. Corporate America is responsible for providing economic benefits to all, not just its investors, the Business Roundtable Group said on Monday. The group's statement of corporate purpose was signed by the heads of more than 180 U.S. companies, who all should be fired, including the CEOs of Amazon.com Incorporated, American Airlines, and J.P. Morgan Chase and Company, which is the biggest American bank. Although largely symbolic, the group's statement goes against a roughly 30-year-old viewpoint that corporations exist to serve shareholders. I'm going to stop right there because I want you to know something. I've invested in the market. If any company said that, I'm saying, give me my money back. I am through. I am done. Don't ask me for any more. Now, this is self-serving and highly manipulative deception doublespeak. They haven't changed their view on stewardship, not one bit. They are stewards for self, and by extension, they were ultimately stewards for their shareholders. However, their allegiance was, is, and always to the bottom line. But in this case, it's the international bottom line. The multinational corporations that make up the Business Roundtable are the same multinationals who exported your jobs, destroyed manufacturing industry in the U.S., and created the Rust Belt. These are the Wall Street multinationals who benefited the most from purchased political policy over the past 30 years. What they're doing now ties directly into what Nancy Pelosi is doing. The Democrats and big multinational business interests are now in alignment. Their common adversary is President Trump. Pelosi, Schumer et al. Have spent years blaming corporate greed for all the ills within society, while simultaneously taking billions from their trough, the little pigs. It was always a con. It is part of the uniparty aspect of D.C. Now Pelosi and Schumer need to use their commonality with the big club to attack their common adversary, President Donald Trump and his Main Street America First agenda. Main Street America is doing fine. As a matter of fact, it's been reported now, they've been revised Q2 and Q1 estimates. Americans are spending. We're spending a lot. Now, the forecast long-term interests of the multinational roundtable means they need to align with the social proclamation of Pelosi's Democrats. They will do this fake metamorphosis by shifting from shareholder stewardship, those who own stocks, to stakeholder stewardship, those who purchase their products and demand a seat at the table to influence corporate ideology. That's the motive for the change in position. You get it? Now, according to their strategy, as soon as President Trump is removed, everyone goes back to their former activity. Business as usual for Uniparty and business as usual for the big club. If these U.S. corporations were concerned about social responsibility, they would pack up their overseas operations, invest in the United States economy, and join with President Trump in trying to maximize the benefits to Main Street. But that ain't their plan. Their plan is to retain their overseas investments and fight against U.S. policy that undermines their multinational business models. Ergo, they need to rebrand, put on the mask of social justice, and find alignment with Democrats toward the united objective. That's what they are doing. And it is brutally transparent if you understand the fight. For example, you got Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff says this is going to be an inflationary recession. There's no way out, and it's a political disaster for Trump because the recession is going to start before he finishes this term, which means he won't have a second term. Schiff, way wrong answer. Peter Schiff is the CEO of the Euro-Pacific Capital. And it's an investment group that puts their investment portfolio where? In Europe and in China. The entire purpose of their existence is to funnel and manage investment funds in Europe and Asia. So do you think Peter Schiff and his Euro-Pacific investment firm might be uniquely exposed to capital losses while the economy of Europe and China shrinks? The answer is yes. President Trump's economic plans and trade activity is 180 degrees in opposition to Peter Schiff's entire portfolio. If Trump is successful, if the USA wins, Schiff goes out of business, as he should. Enough said. This is the battle I've been waiting for. This is the USA versus the multinationals who almost destroyed Main Street and the U.S. middle class. President Trump is the only candidate who have waged this fight. There are trillions at stake. It's complicated business, folks. Complicated business, and it is. Personally, I'm glad we have somebody that's in there that understands this whole thing. Meanwhile, you know how I am about the coup, the attempted coup. From the deep state to trying to overthrow Trump, a duly elected president of this republic. Well, I finally found a couple days ago John Solomon. I believe he was on Lou Dobbs' show. He's an award-winning investigative journalist. And he's going to talk about on the delay of the IG report and the concerns surrounding Joseph Mifsud. Yes. Guess what? Mifsud's lawyers outed Mifsud as a Western intelligence operative, not a Russian operative. Oh, no, Mr. Bill. I don't know. For the younger ones, you don't get it. Us who are almost 60, we know what that means. So, but I want to play it for you. It's about 8 minutes. It's okay. You need to hear it. I will not stop talking about this coup until people are sitting in prison who orchestrated and participated in it. If this was ancient Rome, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The emperor would have had them put up on the wall and sliced and diced, my friend. But we live in a gentler society now, so we must have their day in court. And they will have their day in court, followed by a first-class hanging. So take a listen, my friends. Take a listen.
Well, Rhino and often confused Senator Lindsey Graham, well, making some bizarre statements over the weekend about the imminent release of the Department of Justice Inspector General's report on FISA abuse. Listen to this.
You got the Horowitz, the Inspector General report, that I think will be coming out in weeks, not days, not months. And I believe the Horowitz report is going to be ugly and damning regarding the Department of Justice handling of the Russian probe.
Now, where have we heard all of that before and heard that repeatedly? Well, back in April, Attorney General William Barr said the report could be released in May or June. Last month, the New York Times said the report was expected in the coming weeks. So it has turned out to be months and months, not weeks and days. Congressman John Ratcliffe says right after Labor Day. Congressman Doug Collins says later this fall. And now Lindsey Graham has added his voice to the chorus, and we'll just wait and see, if you don't mind, right here. Stephen Halper, who allegedly met with Trump aides as an FBI informant, asking a federal judge to dismiss a defamation lawsuit against him. Halper arguing that government agents have qualified immunity. A Russian-born academic claims she was smeared by Halper as part of a government conspiracy to bring down the Trump administration. So is he or is he not a government agent? Joining us tonight, The Hill's John Solomon, the leading investigative reporter on these stories of the efforts to overthrow the president, Spygate if you prefer. John, great to have you here.
Good to be with you, Lou.
Let's start with the Inspector General's report. Can you give us some guidance that would clear up what is this cacophony of misinformation?
Yeah, it feels like the thunderstorm that never arrives despite the weatherman's prediction, right?
Yeah, right.
There's a real reason for the delay, and that is when we found through the FOIA process in mid-May, excuse me, these new documents at the State Department. The IG was not aware of those contacts between Steele and Kathleen Kablick at the State Department, and the subsequent conveying of information from the State Department to senior FBI officials, including one who now oversees the counterintelligence division. So that led to a whole new round of questioning. It led to the interview belatedly of Christopher Steele, and I think now, barring any new disclosures, the IG is on course sometime for, I've heard from early to mid-September to earliest week of October as the window that they're trying to hit. But I think they are essentially done with their investigating, but they did reopen the investigation specifically because of that and other information that came to light in May and June.
Inconvenient evidence, disturbing perhaps what had appeared to be conclusive resolution. Now it looks like it might be quite something different and closer to the truth. It is almost, to me, it is extraordinary that that the Inspector General would not be aware of that introduction between the two. But I'm also one of those people who can't for the life of me understand why it takes so long in the Justice Department. I mean, think about all of the instances in which the FBI has been so late in investigating, seemingly lacking the energy to do so aggressively. I mean, in this case of the attempt to overthrow the president, over a 3-year period, you could have created whatever evidence you wanted, destroyed whatever evidence you wanted, and they moved apace, a snail's pace. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, I think I wrote a column a couple weeks ago saying that Chris Wray was sort of at the forefront of this sort of obfuscation and delay.
I can confirm you did write that.
Yes, I did. And I wrote it specifically because there was a different time in history right after 9/11 where the FBI also made terrible mistakes, and they realized in order to reform the institution, they had to come clean about all the mistakes they had made, all the dots they had failed to connect. And they did. They put a lot of embarrassing stuff out because they knew that was right for the American people. The FBI right now is not doing that. It's slow-walking this evidence. It requires threats of subpoena, surprise discoveries. Chris Wray would serve the American public and the FBI far better if he just got the truth on the table and allowed us to move past what was a political dirty trick carried out in our intelligence community. I fear that I have some confidence now for the first time that Attorney General Barr and other people around him are getting the sort of answers that we've been denied for a long time.
Well, that's encouraging. Let's turn to your most recent talking with Massoud's attorney, Joseph Massoud, who has been incommunicado, and who obviously, based on your reporting, has a pretty good understanding of the types of the character of the people from the FBI, the Justice Department, intelligence agencies that he would be dealing with. He seems to have taken considerable steps to inoculate himself.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you know, Mifsud's been called by Mueller a guy with a lot of Russian contacts who lied to us, but Mueller didn't indict him. The only person who lied to Mueller that didn't get indicted. And you have to ask the question, why didn't he get indicted? His lawyer offers a very plausible explanation. Now, we need to see the proof to back this up, and he's providing that proof now to John Durham, Bill Barr's handpicked prosecutor, and to multiple congressional committees, including Lindsey Graham's committee. He says he can show that his client, Mifsud, was a longtime Western intelligence collaborator who was tasked specifically with reaching out to Papadopoulos and making connections for him in Russia. If that's true, the beginning of the origins of the Russia case was a setup. It was a ruse from the beginning, a political dirty trick. We need to get to the bottom of that, but there's some new evidence that's starting to emerge there.
You know, you've twice used the expression dirty trick here tonight, John. This to me, I have to say, this was an effort to stop Donald Trump from being elected president. It was an effort to overthrow his presidency. I think that the evidence is clear in that conclusion. It's not one that I will try to qualify or in any way equivocate. It rises so, to me, and I want to understand your use of the expression dirty trick, it rises to me so much, to much higher and far more grievous crime than dirty trick.
I agree. I think it will get there. I like to always stay on the side before all the facts are out.
You're a good man.
Give a benefit of where things are. We saw what the country looked like in 2017 when we jumped to assumptions about Trump and Russia. So I want to wait till all the facts are out there. But I will say this. It's irrefutable that Hillary Clinton managed to get her opposition researcher inside the FBI and start this whole investigation. I think where we're headed next is emergence of very strong evidence that the FBI knowingly and willfully misled the FISA court, and that the U.S. intelligence agencies in a larger capacity beyond the FBI may also have been involved in what Bill Barr calls political surveillance. That's a term I've never heard before. He chooses his words carefully. The term political surveillance could become very famous this fall. Yeah,
political surveillance, and I hope he does with that what he did with surveillance itself, and returns us to Anglo-Saxon words that are so much clearer, like spying. John Solomon, great to have you with us as always. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
There you have it. Now, some of you know how I feel about Antifa. I find heartwarming joy. I do. Heartwarming joy when I see Antifa getting their butts kicked. And I like it a lot when they have to take an asphalt nap. I like it. And they deserve it. Deserve it. Now, on Laura Ingram's show, The Ingram Angle, she sat down with Elijah Schaffer. He's a citizen journalist who recorded footage from the Antifa protest in Portland over the weekend, which the media, surprise, surprise, and that useless mayor they have, attempted to portray it as peaceful. Well, let's hear what the young lad has to say about that, shall we?
The mayor is like every Democrat politician out there saying that everything's peaceful when they were not there. And of course, when I put this video footage online, we can leave it up to the blue checkmark, SJW, liberal Twitterverse to begin to accuse me, you doctored the footage, you lied. So then I actually put up more footage with 3 angles, which it's hard to lie from 3 different angles, showing the true statement, and I'm still being accused of lying with fellow journalist Andy No about the events that took place. So they're denying the video evidence. And by the way, I ran right past Vice. I ran right past BBC, who were busy filming useless, peaceful demonstrations while the real news was taking place ahead. And that's what citizen journalism has become. It's actually because the mainstream outlets are ignoring the truth. And I'm watching violence. I recorded it, and the sad thing is, it's out on the internet,
crazy.
And still the left is saying it's a lie.
Elijah, this is crazy, though. They are denying reality. We just got through talking about the reality of the U.S. economy. Always warning signs on the horizon, but pretty good fundamentals. They ignore that. They ignore the violence in front of them because it doesn't fit their narrative. If the Proud Boys you know, they're a far-right group. If they were running most of the violence, then they probably would cover it differently, correct? Or was the Proud Boy throwing hammers, too? Was that group throwing hammers?
Yeah, you know, that's what's interesting. So the first violent altercation that I saw was a small citizen journalist. He was a Caucasian male. He was pretty heavy set, looked pretty docile in general, just walked up and started filming, and then they began to pepper spray him, and then they surrounded and blocked out the camera so they could begin to attack him. I got that on footage. We have some major videos dropping on our YouTube channel tomorrow and Wednesday documenting the entire thing. But I watched as the right-wingers, they gathered and they left, but the demonstrations continued for up to 4 hours after the right-wingers left. If they wanted to fight the right wing, why didn't they disperse once they left? Instead, they stayed, destroyed their city, attacked property, and attacked standbyers.
There you go. I know you're not surprised, but I always like to put it out there. I do. I like to put it out there. Now, there's been a backfire. Of course, the New York Times attack on conservative media. Nothing new, but something interesting I thought I would share with you. You know, the New York Times has decided to blame the El Paso murders not on the actual killer, but on conservative media stars. Is here. Specifically by name, that would be the Fox News evening lineup of Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, and then it goes on to talk shows, Rush Limbaugh, plus Fox and Friends' Brian Kilmeade, Fox's Janine Pirro, and Ann Coulter, and of course yours truly, John Jeffers at the Contra Radio Network. Thrown in along the way were outlets like the Sinclair Broadcast Group, the Drudge Report, to platforms like Breitbart News and Gateway Pundit. I like both Breitbart and Gateway. With a specific mention of Sinclair's Boris Epstein, and of, oh yes, there was a reference to former Nixon and Reagan aide and columnist Pat Buchanan. Does it never is. Suffice to say, the smear instantly backfired on the Times itself, big time. So let's start with the Times' reasoning on this smear. This is what these clowns of the New York Times said. There is a striking degree of overlap between the words of right-wing media and personalities and the language used by the Texas man who confessed to killing 22 people at Walmart in El Paso this month. In a 23-word screed posted on the website 8chan, the killer wrote that he was simply defending my country from cultural and ethnic replacement brought on by an invasion, end quote. Got that? There was a striking degree of overlap between the language of these conservative media stars and the language used by the El Paso killer in his so-called manifesto. Well now, what did the Times story mysteriously leave out? Do you remember? Think about it. To borrow from the Times, there is a striking degree of overlap between the words of left-wing Democratic presidential candidates and the New York Times and the language used by the Texas shooter. Let's get specific, says the killer himself. The inconvenient truth is that our leaders, both Democrat and Republican, have been failing us for decades. They are either complacent or involved in one of the biggest betrayals of the American public in our history. The takeover of the United States government by unchecked corporations. There you go. So, where would the killer get such an idea? Where would he pick up such an anti-corporate language? Well, he could start by reading this November 25th, 2018 column by New York Times opinion columnist David Leonhardt, titled The Monopolization of America. In one industry after another, big companies have become more dominant over the past 15 years, new data show. In which the Time columnist says this. This is what he says. Hostility to corporate bigness animated Thomas Jefferson and Teddy Roosevelt, as well as the labor movement, the Granger movement, progressive movement, and more. Of course, monopolies and other corporate giants have fought back against these assaults on their power, and sometimes succeeded for years or decades at a time. It happened during the age of Rockefeller and Morgan. Over the past 40 years, it has happened again. The federal government, under presence of both parties, has largely surrendered to monopoly power. The anti and antitrust has been discarded, as the legal scholar Tim Woot puts in his new book, The Curse of Bigness. Washington allows most mega mergers to proceed either straight up or with only fig leaf changes. The government has also done nothing to prevent the emergence of dominant new technology companies that mimic the old AT&T monopoly. Then there was this language from another Times columnist, Farhad Manjoo, assailing 5 specific corporations, in which Manjoo says this of big corporations: Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, and Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. This is the most glaring and underappreciated fact of internet age capitalism. We are, all of us, in an inescapable thrall to one of the handful of American technology companies that now dominate much of the global economy. Manjoo closes by saying this is the dominance of these 5 giant corporations. It's too late to escape. And he may be right. Not to be left out is this Times jewel assailing corporations. This one, written by Stephen Davidoff Solomon, identified as a professor of law at the University of California, Berkeley. The Times publisher, Professor Solomon, is saying this of big corporations and their use of corporate inversions. Now, if there's a problem with inversions, deals that allow American companies to relocate their headquarters to lower their tax bills. Wait until you hear about the real secret to avoiding corporate taxes. It's called earnings stripping, and it is a technique that the Obama administration has so far failed to stop. The public outcry over the use of inversions is now entering its 3rd year. Pfizer is trying the biggest one yet, a $152 billion deal for Allergan, the maker of Botox, which is based in Dublin, Ireland. The flight of American icons like Pfizer has led to complaints that corporations are gaming the system to lower the taxes they pay to Washington. At the same time, the companies stay in the United States, getting all the benefits of our country. Now, we could go on and on with examples of New York Times language assailing the power of corporations, their evasions of taxes, and more. Language that matches exactly the language of the El Paso shooter. But let's move on to Democratic presidential candidates Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Warren, it turns out, had a fan in the Dayton, Ohio shooter. And Warren's language on corporations and their power couldn't be missed. Want examples? We'll give them to you. Here is The Atlantic running a piece on Warren's views on corporate power, as written by Stacy Mitchell, co-director of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. Now, Elizabeth Warren has a theory about corporate power. Despite the fact that she has never owned a company or anything else, she's pretty much useless, even today. The Atlantic story says that Warren believes that big corporations, political influence, and market dominance are killing smaller rivals, and the small business owners share interests with other victims of corporate power. So you understand where we're going here. Go on and on about this. There is no question that in both exact language and certainly in sentiment views repeatedly expressed by the Times, Warren and Sanders matches exactly the language and sentiment of the El Paso killer on corporations and corporate power. In this not so cleverly disguised attack on Tucker, Sean, Laura Rush, and the rest, the Times mentions nary a peep of the similarity in language between the shooter's manifesto and the Times itself, as well as Warren and Sanders. Say again, not a single word. Obvious conclusion, the left-wing paper wanted to shift responsibility for the shooting from the shooter and blame the stars of conservative media. But in playing this game, the New York Times managed to hit a decidedly unintended target. Itself. Oh, that backfired. Certainly could have done that better, couldn't you, boys? How much time have I left? Oh, plenty of time. Let this circus continue, please. Now, all of us have health care, right? I myself have a health care plan. But when I go to do my prescriptions, I use GoodRx. That's true. I use it. In fact, I just signed up to use Good RX Gold. So instead of saving like 80% on prescriptions, I'll save 90. Something to look at. Plus, when I use the Good RX, and this is true, folks. Listen, you can take it from me. It's true. You can call me, email me, and I'll tell you right now. Many times. I pay a lot less using Good RX than I do using my insurance. And this is why. See, you know we're going to segue in there, so this is the way it goes. The American Conservative has reported on how pill middlemen like CVS are bilking the healthcare system. Now, the outrage mob was at it again last week. This time, the target of their ire was, of all things, CVS Pharmacy. The fracas was a result of some clever antagonistic marketing by Pill Club, a San Francisco-based startup. It's a company that acts as a sort of online pharmacy, providing customers with birth control pills and other contraceptives. Now, angry with the CVS Caremark over the high prices it was charging, Pill Club publicly insisted that the company was depriving women of health care. Where have we heard that before? Of course, feminist Twitter outrage ensued, and hashtag CVS denies care, and hashtag boycott CVS quickly popped up. Now, CVS, for its part, tried to quell the storm by releasing a statement saying Pill Club had been offered the same rates as any other pharmacy. So it goes. CVS fell victim to yet another leftist mob demanding special treatment. For that, conservatives might be tempted to defend CVS against the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, but the company doesn't deserve it. Not by a long shot, and this is why. CVS Caremark is a pharmacy benefit manager. It's a PBM, pharmacy benefit manager. A middleman between drug manufacturers and pharmacies, including online distributors like pill clubs. PBMs are hired by health insurers in order to negotiate prices, handle insurance claims, and oversee the distribution of drugs. Ostensibly, they should reduce drug prices using their network to negotiate, making life easier for pharmacies, customers, and insurers alike. But this isn't always the case. Hold on. I don't know about you. Go to GoodRx. I know, I'm talking about GoodRx. I wish they would sponsor this show, but that's another issue. And so I got getting like 10,000 likes a day or 10,000 views a day. They won't even, I'm nothing to them. But anyways, go to GoodRx. Plug in any prescription you want. More often than not, I want to say like 95% of the time, CVS is the most expensive drug out there. Walmart's cheap. Myers is cheap. Walgreens is, depends. But CVS is always at the bottom with the highest price. Just about always. So our Frankenstein's monster of a healthcare system has created an abundance of rent seekers. The term economists give to firms that exploit highly regulated markets and make profits that otherwise couldn't. And PBMs, like CVS, are the worst of the bunch. They use monopolistic conditions, secrecy, and deception to inflate their profits at the expense of the consumers, exploiting their role in America's decidedly non-market healthcare system. As Republican Congressman Doug Collins once said, they are as monopolistic terrorists on the market. And he's right. CVS Caremark, Express Scripts, and OptumRx are some of the worst rent seekers in the American economy. In 2018, The Economist argued that PBMs, not drug manufacturers or insurers, were the recipients of the greatest excess profits in the U.S. healthcare system. According to the magazine, excess profits from healthcare firms are equal to $200 per American per year, and middlemen capture $126 of excess profits a year per American. I'm going to say it again. According to The Economist magazine, Excess profits from healthcare firms are equal to $200 per American per year, and middlemen capture $126 of excess profits a year per American. Look, like I said at the beginning of the show, I've got no problem with you making a profit. That's the whole point of being in business. It's another thing when you're cutting out my heart to do it. That is why I kind of draw the line. So one of the main ways the PBMs seek rent is through their negotiations of rebates from drug manufacturers. And generally, to retain a PBM's favor, drug manufacturers will readily cough them up. In return, the PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, split the dough between themselves and the insurance company, placing the majority of it in their own pockets, of course. Well, duh. So just how much, then, do they make off these rebates? Since the payments are kept strictly confidential, it's hard to pin down the exact number. But considering the fact that insurers received $89 billion in rebates from the PBMs in 2016, it's safe to say they make a lot. And it gets worse. As if it could, it does. There are plenty of instances where a customer would actually be able to purchase drugs at a lower price without insurance. But PBMs don't like this competition, so their contracts with pharmacies often include gag clauses, preventing pharmacists from even telling consumers or customers that cheaper options are available. According to the USC Schaefer Center for Health Policy and Economics, prescription drugs are overpaid for 23% of the time. Now, PBMs like CVS have made a pretty penny off America's failing system of employer-sponsored insurance. If the market were ever truly free, they would be crushed. Prescriptions are a product, and they would finally be treated like one. After all, I don't need a third party to negotiate the price I pay for a car. Why should my medicine be any different? America has embraced a broken system of employer-sponsored health insurance. Industry lobbyists have done everything in their power to ensure that alternative forms of health care coverage are limited. And it's not as though government has proven to be much of help. Now, in 2018, Congress passed a law eliminating gag clauses and urging greater price transparency. And who has been calling for that? That's right, President Trump has. Well, it's true. Now, this proposal has drawbacks that ultimately limit its effectiveness, so something's got to give. As long as consumers are several steps removed from the actual processes governing drug prices, they'll continue to be taken advantage of. If it's not these third parties are doing anything to stave off addictions or help Americans make wiser decisions about their medicine, all PBMs do is make people poor in exchange for nothing. That's why CVS doesn't deserve anyone's sympathy. If the outrage mob wants to take on one of the biggest bullies in the healthcare system, then let them fight. There you go. That's the voice of reason. That's what I'm talking about. That's what drives me bonkers. Where's my lemonade? I do love it. Now, it has been reported by Front Page Mag that the unhinged former FBI director targets Trump supporters. This is for you patriots out there. Listen up. You want to go crazy? Let's go nuts, shall we? Now, after the mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton, President Trump lowered flags to half-mast until August 8th. This is where, okay, if you're driving the car, try not to laugh and hit the ditch, all right? According to a commentator on MSNBC, that was a secret signal to white supremacists, meaning Heil Hitler, with H being the 8th letter of the alphabet. As a number of commentators and comedians pointed out, it was the sort of thing one expects from the drunk at the end of the bar or an escaped mental patient. The speaker was Frank Figliuzzi, the FBI's former assistant director for counterintelligence. Now, Figliuzzi is an attorney with a JD, that's a Juris Doctorate, from the University of Connecticut. Joined the FBI in 1987 and, among other tasks, served as special agent in charge of the Miami field office. Figliuzzi worked his way up to FBI chief inspector and then assistant director for counterintelligence. What actual foreign espionage Figliuzzi managed to uncover has not come to light. On the other hand, as an MSNBC mouthpiece, he has revealed a great deal about himself. Mainly he needs rehab. No, it's just my opinion. So in an August 12th appearance on MSNBC's Deadline White House, Figliuzzi told anchor Chris Jansen that the Trump administration should be viewed through the lens of radicalization. Jansen countered that the president demands blind loyalty from his followers, and Figliuzzi clicked on the link. Well, this is why it's so important to look through the lens of radicalization when you look at this president and then apply counter-radicalization techniques, because you're right. Attacking his followers is going to be counterproductive, said Figliuzzi, and if he wasn't done, he says, he demands that loyalty, and they are loyal. So if you call Trump followers racist en masse, they simply coalesce around each other and become even more defensive and protective of the leader, just as they would say a terrorist organization to compare it to the radicalization. Did somebody check this guy for a crack pipe before he got on? Probably not. He probably shared it with them. So as Mike Bress noted in the Washington Examiner, Figliuzzi had indeed compared supporters of President Trump to members of a terrorist organization, and that would, of course, justify militant action against them. As it happens, that is a belch from deep state in general and the administration of POTUS 44 in particular. That'd be Obama. Desire to wage war on ordinary Americans, to disadvantage them or even to kill them, had long been bubbling in the ruling class's basement. Angelo Codevilla recently noted on American Greatness, Codevilla cited the Department of Homeland Security's hotspots of terrorism and other crimes in the United States, 1979 to 2008. This 2012, what is that? Hold on. Go away. All right. The 2012 study classified persons judged to be suspicious of centralized federal authority and reverent of individual liberty as extreme right-wing terrorists. Well, you know what? We're supposed to be suspicious of centralized federal authority. That's what the founding fathers want. That's why they set up the Constitution for this republic. And yes, I like my individual liberty. And if that makes me an extreme right-wing terrorist, you can just kiss my ass. Now consider also challengers from the sidelines, understanding America's violent far right from the Combating Terrorism Center at West Point. This 2013 study warns about the anti-federalist movement, whose members espouse strong convictions regarding the federal government, believing it to be corrupt and tyrannical with a natural tendency to intrude on individuals' civil and constitutional rights. Well, that's right. They also support civil activism, individual freedoms, and self-government. In the United States, people of that description fill a rather large tent. Consider also right-wing extremism, current economic and political climate fueling resurgence and radicalization and recruitment, an April 2009 publication of DHS, then ruled by former Arizona Governor Janet Napolitano. These right-wing extremists are mainly anti-government, rejecting federal authority in favor of state or local authority. That's because that's the way it's set up. The possible passage of new restrictions on firearms also disturbs them. It should. All I got to say for that is 2A. Those who find these government studies troubling might recall that POTUS 44, formerly known as Barry Soetoro, refused to link Islam with terrorism. Those who believe the federal government intrudes on individual rights might wonder how the FBI handled actual cases of terrorism under that administration. Oh, they probably didn't. As it emerged in lessons from Fort Hood, improving our ability to connect the dots during his medical residency at the U.S. Army's Nadal Hassan demonstrated evidence of violent extremism, sympathy for radical Islam, and even wrote papers defending bin Laden. Yet no action was taken. Instead, Major Hassan was rewarded for his work and promoted. In May of 2009, the Army Major was communicating with terrorist mastermind Anwar al-Awlaki, who I believe was an American masquerading as a terrorist, and he was killed. In fact, I believe it was an Obama drone that killed him. And so he's communicating terrorizing about killing American soldiers. Now, these and other emails between the two were in the hands of the FBI, which looked the other way and dropped the case until November 5th, 2009. That day, Hassan killed 13 Americans and wounded 42 others, the worst terrorist attack on Americans since 9/11. The president pronounced it, well, it's just workplace violence, not even gun violence. The FBI director at the time was who? None other than Robert Mueller. He served from 2001 to 2013, longer than any FBI boss except J. Edgar Hoover. It was Mueller who in 2011 appointed Frank Figliuzzi, Assistant Director of Counterintelligence. He may be the looniest anti-Trumper on television, but to be fair, the former FBI Assistant Director is an equal opportunity hater. He tweets about Moscow Mitch, and as the network explains, Figliuzzi joined Nicole Wallace to discuss reporting that a Russian company invested in an aluminum plant in Kentucky soon after McConnell led the efforts to lift sanctions on that company. There you go. There you have it. Now you know. Now you know! I'm not going to have time to get to my next story, which is too bad. Where am I? Where am I? All right, hold on. We got to fix this. We're going to fix this real quick. You know what? No. Let me get up here. Where is it? Yes, here we go. It's time. Let's get it taken care of, shall we? Social justice warrior time. Let's find out what these freaks are up to this week, shall we? Shall we? Yes, we shall. Oh, let's see here. Republican YouTube star Joey Salads says the establishment gop can be cringy. He's probably right. Elizabeth Warren deletes DNA test results from her campaign website. She said it was a mistake. Really? Well, that mistake netted her a $500,000 job at Harvard. Yeah, check it out. They gave it to her because she checked that little box on the application. Yeah. University of Alabama receives millions in taxpayer funding for diversity programs. Diversity and inclusion programming. It never ends. The University of Houston student leader apologizes after defending free speech on campus. A student government leader at the University of Houston, Clear Lake, is facing calls for his removal after he encouraged his peers to respect controversial opinions and free speech on campus. God forbid we should have free speech on campus. You know that? Well, it's true. You know, Berkeley used to be the free speech center, but that was back in the 60s and 70s with the dirty old hippies. And now it's the restricted speech area where if you don't parrot the party line of the liberal Democrats, progressives, and socialists there, well, you're not allowed to talk at all to them. So there's that. There's always that. And a female professor wears beers to protest sexism in science. Whatever. And Clemson opens female-only programs to males after a Title IX complaint. Yes. All right, I got about a minute left. If you enjoyed the show, let me know. ContraRadio@live.com. ContraRadio@live.com. Simply drop me an email. Get a hold of me on mumblet.com. Contra Radio Network page there. Disgracebook. You'll find Contra Radio Network page there as well. If you like this show, do me a favor. Go to ContraRadio.podbean.com. Punch in, do the search, Contra Radio Network. You see it. I'm asking for $2 a month. $2 a month. All right. Anything else before we leave? I don't think so. I think we got it all covered. Have a good weekend. Summer's almost over. Get out there, do what you got to do. Until then, I'm John Jeffers saying goodbye, and we'll talk to you next week.